In this video, we're going to have a look at distance, speed, and time. Before we do that, I just want to talk about a few ideas. I want to talk about this speed here, 40 miles per hour, and what that actually means. 40 miles per hour means every 1 hour we go 40 miles. That's what it means, 40 miles per hour. For every 1 hour we go 40 miles. So if we go for 2 hours, well, that would mean we would go 80 miles. Because it's 40 and 40. If we were to go for 10 hours, 10 hours would be 10 lots of 40s. That would be 400 miles. And each of these values here is a distance. And what we're doing to calculate that distance is we're taking our speed and we're multiplying it by the time. 40 times 2 is 80. 40 times 10 is 400. And what we can do is we can generate a formula that calculate the distance. Make that a bit thicker. To calculate the distance, we would do the speed and we would multiply that by the time. But we could also think about this in another way. Let's imagine that we were just given this information here. Let's imagine we were told that we travelled 80 miles in 2 hours. What's our speed? Well, our speed is going to have to be in miles per hour. So if we go 80 miles in 2 hours, if we do 80 divided by 2, that would give us the speed per 1 hour. And that would be 40 miles per hour. So to calculate the speed, to calculate the speed, we can divide the distance by the time. And there's another formula as well for time. To calculate the time, we would do distance divided by speed. But all these, there's 3 formulas. I'll just write it down. To calculate the time, we would do distance over speed. Distance divided by speed. Okay, so we've got 3 formula here that we need to know how to work out. But this is sometimes shortened into the distance, speed, and time triangle. Usually, it's just written with the letters D, S, and T. Distance, speed, and time. And if we can remember this triangle, it should help us identify what the formulas are. For example, if we wanted to calculate distance, what I would ask you to do is to cover up the letter D with your finger. I've had to colour it in. If you cover up letter D with your finger, you'll notice you've got S and T on the same level. So that means to calculate distance, you would do speed times time because they're on the same level. If we wanted to calculate speed, you would put your finger over the letter S. And this time the 2 remaining letters are on different levels, D and T. So it's D over T. And we can see here, this is what we've got here. To calculate the speed, we do the distance divided by the time. And similarly, this is true for time. If we're to cover up T, we've got D and S on different levels, and we can see that to calculate time, we do distance divided by speed. Okay, so we can use this triangle and manipulate this triangle to find unknown problems with regard to speed, distance, and time. Okay, so let's have a look at a couple of examples here. So I'm just going to draw my triangle here. DST. Distance, speed, and time. Question 1. How far does a car go in 3 hours at a speed of 50 miles per hour? So every hour it goes 50 miles. We want to know how far does it go in 3 hours. So how far is the distance? So we want to do the distance. And what we'll do is we would use our triangle. And we would cover up D with our finger. And we're left with S and T on the same level. Because they're on the same level, we multiply them. So the distance is equal to speed times time. So what was the speed in question 1? The speed was 50 miles per hour. So it's 50 multiplied by 3 hours. So the distance is going to be 150 miles. It's not 150 miles per hour, that would be a speed. It's actually travelled 150 miles in 3 hours. Question 2. How far does a bus go in 4 hours at a speed of 40 miles per hour? Let's have a look. So we want to calculate the distance. So to calculate the distance, we do speed multiplied by time. It goes 40 miles an hour. It goes for 4 hours. And that's going to give us 160 miles. It's not always going to be miles. It depends on the units. In number 3, it's miles per hour, so that'll be miles. In number 4, that's m/s, that's going to be meters per second. And number 5, it's going to be meters as well for a distance. So I've done the first 2. You should be able to do the rest of exercise 1. I'd suggest pausing the video and having a go at those. Okay, we can have a look at how to calculate speed as well. So once again, I'm just going to draw this triangle. So I've got dst. So, question 1. Pam cycled 20 metres in 4 seconds. What is her speed in metres per second? We want to calculate her speed. So if we cover up s with a finger, we're left with d over t. And that over means to divide. So to calculate the speed, we'll do the distance and we'll divide that by the time. The distance, how far did she go? She did 20 metres and she did that in 4 seconds. 20 divided by 4 is 5. What is our 5 what? What is our speed? So it's 5 metres every second. And we write it like this here, 5 metres per second. Question 2. Ken is running at a constant speed. He covers 18 metres in 3 seconds. What is his speed? So to calculate speed, we do distance, we divide it by time. So we did 18 metres in 3 seconds. We want to know how far did we go every 1 second. So we went 6 metres every 1 second. 6 metres per second. Okay, we just done the first 2. You should be able to have a go at questions 3, 4 and 5. So you might want to pause the video here. Okay, similarly we've got time. I'm only going to do one example for time. So once again we've got d, s and t. So to calculate time, we'll do distance divided by speed. I'm only going to do question 1 here. So time equals distance over speed. So number 1, calculate the time taken to go 80 kilometres. So it's 80. And we're going 20 kilometres an hour. So it's 80 over 20. And 80 over 20 is 4. 4 what? It's time and it's kilometres per hour. So it's 4 hours. Okay, I've just done question 1. You should be able to do 2 through 5. So you might want to pause the video again. Okay, there's 3 questions, 3 final questions here at the bottom. That will go over quite quickly. A car travels at a constant speed of 56 miles for 2 hours. How far does it travel in this time? Okay, so how far does it travel? That's a distance question. And we know to calculate distance, we do speed times time. The speed is 56 miles per hour. The time is 2 hours. 56 times 2 is 112, and if it's miles per hour, that's going to be 112 miles. That's quite a straightforward one. However, if we have a look at number 2, you'll notice something a bit different. Number 2 has this. And we've never really dealt with minutes so far. A bus travels for 30 minutes at an average speed of 40 miles per hour. How far does the bus travel in this time? So, 40 miles per hour means 40 miles in every hour. Every 1 hour we go 40 miles. And every 1 hour we go 40 miles. And we've only travelled for 30 minutes. That's not a full hour. So what we want to do is we want to convert this 30 minutes. You could just do this off the top of your head. But if not, you want to convert this 30 minutes into a decimal. 30 minutes does not equal 0.3 hours. That is not true. We know 30 minutes is half an hour, and we know half an hour is 0.5. So how do we convert the minutes? Well, what we do is we take our 30 minutes and we divide it by 60, because there's 60 minutes in an hour. And 30 divided by 60 gives us our 0.5 hours. 30 minutes is half an hour. This is the time that we will use. So it says, how far does the bus travel? That's the distance, equals speed multiplied by time. The speed is 40 miles per hour. We multiply that by the time, which is 0.5, because it's half an hour. And that's going to be 20 miles. And hopefully that makes sense. Every 1 hour we go 40 miles. If we've only went for half an hour, we've went half of 40 miles, which is 20 miles. Lastly, a ferry travels for 15 minutes. Okay, so 15 minutes is an issue here. At an average speed of 8 miles per hour, how far does the ferry travel in this time? So we've got distance is equal to speed multiplied by time. The speed is 8 miles per hour. The time is not 0.15. That is not true, because there's not 100 minutes in an hour. There's 60 minutes in an hour. So what we want to do is we want to change this 15 minutes into hours. So we'll do 15 minutes divided by 60. And that's going to give us 0.25 hours. And we know that. That's a quarter. That's a quarter of an hour. 50 minutes is a quarter. So the time is 0.25, a quarter of an hour. And 8 times 0.25 is 2 miles. Okay, so those last two ones there, if you ever have if you ever have an amount in minutes, a time in minutes, if you divide that by 60, you would change that into a decimal in terms of hours. So there's some examples there on speed, distance and time.